Let me ask you a serious question. Have you ever considered that the very thing you are doing to attract fish is exactly what is driving them away? We have all been there. The water is quiet, the bite is dead, and you are desperate for action. So, you reach into your bag and pull out that little bottle of foul-smelling liquid. You cover your lure in it, thinking you are ringing the dinner bell. But here is the brutal truth that nobody talks about. That powerful fishy scent you just added might not be whispering free meal to a sluggish fish. It might be screaming danger, predator nearby, run for your life. Today, we are going to tear down one of the oldest fishing myths out there. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will completely rethink how you prepare your baits. We are going to look at the real science of how fish react to smells when they are not actively feeding. I guarantee this will explain why you have had so many days when nothing seems to bite. Tell me in the comments later if you have been guilty of this exact mistake. Let us dive in. For decades, the fishing industry has sold us a very simple idea. If the fish are not biting, you need to make your bait smell irresistible. The logic seems bulletproof on the surface. Fish have a great sense of smell, right? So, logically, adding the scent of a bleeding baitfish or crushed crawdad should make them bite. We have been trained by magazines, commercials, and our grandfathers to believe that a bare plastic lure is simply not enough. So we buy gels, sprays, and oils. We buy things that smell so bad they make us gag, hoping they will make a fish hungry. And why do we keep doing it? Because every now and then, we catch a fish while using it. We tie that success to the smell, and a habit is born. We do the same thing year after year. We slather our baits in garlic, anise, or rotting shed scent. But we rarely stop to think about the mood of the fish. We rarely consider that a bass or a walleye sitting in freezing water might interpret that smell completely differently than a highly active fish in the middle of summer. It is time to look at the context of the situation, because that is where the whole strategy falls apart. Picture this scenario in your head. It is early morning on the lake. The mist is still rolling off the surface of the cold water. You have got your favorite rod in your hands, and you tie on a jig that usually works wonders. But before you make that first cast, you grab that little plastic bottle from your bag. You know the exact one I am talking about. It smells like a mixture of old bait, left out in the baking sun, and pure desperation. You squeeze a generous amount all over your lure. You think to yourself, this is going to be the secret weapon today. The water temperature has dropped. The fish are totally sluggish. They need a little extra convincing to open their mouths. So you cast out. The lure hits the water with a soft splash and sinks down into the dark cover. You wait patiently. You twitch the rod tip just a little bit. You wait some more. Absolute silence. Not even a tiny nibble. You might sit there for 3 hours, freezing your hands off, wondering why the fish are ignoring your perfectly scented offering. You were told that this magic potion would wake them up, but you are getting ignored. You were told by the marketing companies that this liquid triggers a massive feeding frenzy. But what if I told you that the exact moment you squeezed that foul-smelling liquid onto your lure, you might have ruined your chances of catching anything in that specific spot? Let us really take a step back and think about what that strong smell represents in the natural underwater world. In nature, strong smells do not just appear out of nowhere. A perfectly healthy baitfish swimming along does not leave a massive oily trail of rotting scent behind it. Healthy fish are practically odorless in the water column because their survival depends on not being tracked by predators. When a strong, overpowering smell of crushed fish or blood suddenly fills the water, it means only one thing has happened: violence. It means something just got torn apart. It means a larger, aggressive predator is actively hunting and killing right there in that exact location. Now, let us think about the fish you are actually trying to catch. We are talking about lethargic fish here. Maybe a cold front just pushed through. Maybe the barometric pressure skyrocketed over the last 24 hours. When this happens, a fish does not want to feed. Its metabolism slows down to a crawl. It tucks itself deep into the weeds, under a heavy log, or drops down into a deep hole. The only thing on the mind of this lethargic fish is resting and staying absolutely safe from harm. They are not prowling the flats looking for an easy meal. They are in survival and conservation mode. So, imagine you are that resting fish, hiding under a sunken tree, trying to conserve energy. Suddenly, a massive cloud of scent drifts down into your hiding spot. It smells exactly like a baitfish that has just been crushed by a massive set of jaws. How do you react? Do you suddenly feel hungry? Or do you feel terrified? To a fish that is completely shut down and lethargic, that strong smell is not an appetizer. It is a blaring siren warning them of impending danger. By throwing that heavily scented bait right on their head, you are essentially telling them that a massive predator is actively feeding right in their living room. A sluggish fish does not want to compete with a highly aggressive feeding predator. They certainly do not want to become the next meal for whatever just tore up that baitfish. So instead of creeping out of the brush pile to inspect your lure, they hunker down even tighter. They press their bellies into the mud. They lock their jaws shut. Their survival instinct completely overrides any tiny bit of hunger they might have had. You thought you were offering a free snack, but you actually just deployed an underwater scare tactic. Let us talk a little bit about the biology of baitfish. There is a fascinating and real scientific phenomenon that we need to understand. Many species of baitfish, like minnows and shiners, have special cells in their skin. When these fish are bitten, crushed, or seriously injured by a predator, those skin cells rupture. When they rupture, they release specific chemicals directly into the surrounding water. Scientists call this an alarm substance. In German, the scientific term is Schreckstoff, which literally translates to scary stuff. When other fish in the area detect even the tiniest microscopic trace of this chemical, they instantly panic. They know a predator is actively killing their relatives. They scatter, they hide, and they completely stop feeding. It is a biological tripwire designed to keep the rest of the school alive when one of their own is being eaten. Now, think about what is actually inside that bottle of liquid scent you bought from the tackle shop. Many of the most popular natural fish attractants are made by grinding up real baitfish. They take whole shad, minnows, or crawfish, crush them into a paste, and extract the oils. When they crush those whole fish to make the scent, what do you think happens to those alarm cells in the skin? They are completely ruptured. The alarm chemicals are released directly into the oil that gets bottled up. So, when you smear that natural shad scent all over your soft plastic worm, you might literally be painting your lure with concentrated liquid terror. You are casting out the exact chemical compound that nature uses to tell fish to run away and hide. It is no wonder your bite rate drops to 0 when the fishing conditions are already tough. There is a massive difference between a fish that is actively feeding and a fish that is sluggish. When the water is warm, the pressure is stable, and the fish are aggressively chasing bait, they might not care about alarm scents. In fact, during a massive feeding frenzy, the smell of injured fish might actually attract more predators looking to join the chaos. It becomes a competitive eating contest. If one base is eating, the other base want a piece of the action too. In those specific highly active conditions, throwing a smelly bleeding bait can absolutely work in your favor. It adds to the illusion of a wounded, easy meal in a chaotic environment. But you have to know how to read the room. What works on a Tuesday in the middle of a warm summer evening is not going to work on a Saturday morning after a brutal autumn cold front. This is where the mistake of over-application ruins the day. I have seen guys out on the water who treat their fishing lures like a hot dog at a baseball game. They just drown the thing in mustard. They squeeze half a tube of scent onto a single plastic worm until it is dripping thick oil everywhere. When you drop a bait like that into calm, clear, cold water, it does not look or smell natural at all. It creates a massive, unnatural oil slick on the surface. As it sinks, it leaves a chemical trail so thick that a fish can smell it from 20 yards away. If a base is tucked under a dock, barely breathing, trying to stay warm, that aggressive chemical bomb is incredibly offensive to their senses. It is like someone walking into your bedroom while you are sleeping and spraying a whole can of cheap cologne directly into your face. You are not going to wake up hungry. You are going to wake up angry and want to leave the room immediately. We need to rethink what a natural presentation actually looks like to a fish that is not in the mood to eat. When a fish is lethargic, you have to convince them to take a reaction strike or a very subtle opportunity meal. Think about how a real live crawdad behaves when the water is freezing cold. It does not run around the bottom of the lake doing jumping jacks and emitting a massive cloud of odor. It moves incredibly slowly. It tries to stay perfectly camouflaged. It barely disturbs the mud. If a bass sees a tiny, slow-moving target that looks defenseless and does not smell like a crime scene, it might just suck it in simply because it is right in front of its face. It takes almost zero energy to eat a quiet, unassuming piece of food. That is the exact mindset you need to tap into when the bite is tough. Less is almost always more. Let us explore the psychology of the fish holding tight to cover. Imagine a large walleye positioned perfectly behind a large boulder in a river. The water is cold, and the current is moving past. This fish is waiting for something weak to just float by. If you cast a jig covered in aggressive natural baitfish scent upstream, that scent washes down long before the lure arrives. The walleye smells the heavy concentration of crushed baitfish. In its mind, another predator is up there thrashing around. The walleye might decide to abandon its prime ambush spot and slide into deeper water just to avoid a potential confrontation with a larger predator. By the time your jig actually drifts past the boulder, the walleye is long gone. You fished the spot perfectly, but your scent pushed the fish out of the strike zone before the lure even got there. But what about non-natural scents? This is where things get really interesting for fishermen. Have you ever wondered why scents like garlic, black licorice, or heavy salt are so incredibly popular in the bass fishing world? Think about it logically. There are no wild cloves of garlic swimming around in the lake. There is no natural anise dropping from the trees into the water. Yet, these weird unnatural flavors catch fish all the time. Why? Because they do not carry the biological alarm signal of a crushed baitfish. Garlic is a very strong smell, and it does a fantastic job of masking the unnatural odors of human hands, sunscreen, or gasoline. But to a bass, garlic does not mean a predator just killed a minnow here. It is just a strange, curious smell that does not trigger a panic response. It masks the bad smells without sending a danger signal. This brings us to a huge realization about how we handle our baits. The primary goal of adding scent when the fish are lethargic should not be to attract them from 50 feet away. That is a fool's errand in cold water. The primary goal should be masking your own negative scents. Fish have an incredible ability to detect very unnatural chemicals. If you just pumped gas into your truck, put on bug spray, or ate a greasy sandwich, those oils are on your fingers. When you rig a soft plastic worm, you transfer those chemical warnings right onto the bait. A sluggish fish might slowly swim up to inspect your lure, get one tiny sniff of bug spray, and turn away immediately. You do not need a rotting fish smell to cover that up. You just need a subtle neutral masking agent. Even just rubbing your hands in the local mud or weeds before tying your knot is better than dipping your lure into a bottle of panic juice. Let me share a situation you have probably witnessed from the bank or the boat. There are two guys fishing right next to each other. They are casting into the exact same weed line. They are using the exact same color of plastic worm. The water is cold, and it has been a terrible day for fishing. Guy number 1 is constantly reapplying his heavy, sticky fish scent every 3 casts. He is frustrated and thinks the smell will eventually draw them out. Guy number 2 is fishing his plastic worm straight out of the package, completely plain. Guy number 2 slowly pulls a 3-pound bass out of the weeds. Then another one. Guy number 1 is losing his mind. He cannot understand why his scented bait is being ignored. It is because guy number 1 is practically broadcasting a predator warning signal right into the weeds, pushing the fish slightly away, while guy number 2 is offering a quiet, unthreatening target. If you absolutely insist on using natural fish scents, you have to radically change your application method when conditions are tough. You cannot squirt it on like toothpaste. You need to use the absolute bare minimum. Put a single tiny drop on the tail of your plastic bait. Or better yet, put a drop on your fingers and just lightly rub the bait, so there is only a microscopic film on it. You want just enough scent so that when the fish actually bites down, it tastes something natural and holds on for an extra second, giving you time to set the hook. You do not want a massive cloud of scent washing ahead of your lure. Think of it as a subtle flavor enhancer rather than a giant dinner bell. It should be a tiny reward for biting, not a billboard advertisement from 10 yards away. Another trick that experienced anglers use is to match the scent strictly to the mood of the fish, not just the water type. If you are fishing a slow, deep presentation like a drop shot rig, the bait is essentially sitting still right in the face of the fish. It gives the fish a long time to inspect the lure. If you have an overpowering artificial fish scent radiating from that motionless plastic, it becomes suspicious. Real food that sits perfectly still does not usually smell that strongly. In these ultra-finesse situations, many professional anglers switch strictly to salt-impregnated baits. Salt is a completely natural mineral. It changes the density of the water slightly around the bait. When a fish tastes salt, it mimics the salty taste of blood or tissue naturally, without carrying the heavy alarm chemicals of crushed skin cells. Salt makes them hold on, without scaring them off beforehand. Let us talk about the visual aspect compared to the smell aspect. When fish are lethargic, their strike zone shrinks drastically. A highly active fish might swim 20 feet to smash a moving spinnerbait. A cold, sluggish fish might only be willing to move 6 inches to grab a meal. Because they are not moving, their primary sense for hunting becomes vision first, lateral line vibration second, and smell last. They are looking closely at the bait as it slowly falls past their face. If they see a thick, unnatural glob of gel hanging off the hook, it breaks the visual illusion. You have ruined the visual profile of the bait to add a smell that they probably do not even want. You have to prioritize a perfect, natural, slow visual presentation over a stinky chemical trail. The way the bait moves and falls is 100 times more important than what brand of spray you coated it with. It is also crucial to understand how water temperature affects the way oils disperse. The liquids in those scent bottles are usually oil-based. What happens to oil when it gets cold? It thickens up. It clumps. When you squeeze fish oil onto a bait in warm water in July, it disperses nicely into a thin trail. But if you try that same trick in November when the water is freezing, that oil congeals. It turns into a sticky white paste that clings to your lure. It does not wash off. It just sits there looking terrible. Worse, because it is congealed, it holds the concentrated smell right on the plastic. When a fish finally does come up to investigate, it gets hit with a wall of solid odor. Understanding the physical properties of your fishing gear in different weather conditions is just as vital as knowing where the fish are hiding. So, how do we break this lifelong habit? It starts by trusting your presentation skills rather than relying on a magic potion in a bottle. Next time you are out on the water and the bite completely dies, fight the urge to reach for the stink juice. Do not try to force feed a fish that is telling you it wants to be left alone. Instead of adding smell, change your tactics. Downsize your lure to something tiny and non-threatening. Switch to a lighter fishing line so your bait moves more naturally. Slow your retrieval speed down by half, and then slow it down even more. Give that lethargic fish something that looks like an incredibly easy, safe, and quiet meal. Show them something that does not require them to compete with a phantom predator that your scent bottle just invented. The fishing industry relies heavily on our desperation. They know that when we have gone 4 hours without a single bite, we are willing to buy and try absolutely anything to avoid going home empty-handed. They package these scents in bright bottles with aggressive names, promising explosive strikes and monster catches. But the fish do not read the marketing labels. The fish only read the natural cues provided by thousands of years of evolution. Evolution has taught them that the heavy smell of crushed fish means a bigger fish is eating, and that it is a very dangerous time to be out in the open. By buying into the hype without understanding the biology, we are literally paying money to sabotage our own fishing trips. We are turning our perfectly good tackle into warning beacons. In the end, becoming a better angler is all about reading the conditions and understanding the mindset of the animal you are trying to outsmart. A huge part of that is knowing when to stay aggressive and when to back off entirely. Scents and attractants absolutely have a place in fishing. I am not saying you should throw them all in the garbage. When the water is warm, the fish are chasing bait, and you want to trigger competitive aggression, squeeze that bottle and hold on tight. But when the sky gets bright, the wind dies down, the water gets cold, and the fish lock their jaws, you have to be smarter. You have to realize that silence, subtlety, and a completely natural odorless presentation are your best friends. Keep the alarm bells quiet, and you might just trick that giant fish into taking one quiet, sneaky bite. So, let us bring it all together. The biggest takeaway here is the ultimate plot twist of your tackle box. That expensive, ultra-fishy scent you have been relying on during tough days might actually be an evolutionary alarm bell. By blasting your lure with the smell of crushed baitfish, You are telling every sluggish, hiding fish in the area that a massive predator is actively killing things right above their heads. Instead of making them hungry, you are triggering their survival instincts and making them lock their jaws shut. It completely changes the way you look at a tough day on the water, does it not? Next time the bite is slow, leave the magic stink juice in the bag. Focus on a stealthy, quiet, and perfectly natural presentation without setting off the predator alarm. Thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today. If this video made you rethink your fishing strategy, hit that subscribe button right now and drop a like on the video. It really helps out. Now, I want to hear from you. Head down to the comments and tell me, what is the most ridiculous or worst smelling thing you have ever put on a fishing lure? And did you actually catch anything on it? Let us get a discussion going down there, and I will see you on the water next time.